On this episode of Audiobook Club...
What if Russia wins?
We're used to thinking that everything will be fine. That is how it works in every Hollywood film. That is how it was in 1945 and 1989. Not straight away. That would be boring. But eventually everything turns out okay. Sure, our democracy, Ukraine and the West are under pressure. Populists are winning elections. Russian troops are advancing. Donald Trump is president. But in the end, it won't be so bad. Russia won't attack us. Our democracy will survive. The West will remain strong. But what if things don't turn out that way? What if Russia wins?
It's Steve.
And it's Bobbie.
And this is the podcast about audiobooks that thinks if it's Armageddon, at least we've been warned. Now, last week, you might remember that Matt suggested this book to Bobbie and me.
Next week's book is a John Buchan reboot. His Richard Hannay series of books was part of the inspiration for James Bond. And this is the bit I've been looking forward to, it's written and narrated by Ben Miller.
So obviously you might see there is one person missing in this episode, and it's Matt, and it wouldn't be right because he suggested this book, didn't he, Bob?
He certainly did. It's a favourite of his.
Yeah, it's a favourite of his, A Very Dangerous Pursuit by Ben Miller. We've all read it, and we'll save our review and that for the next episode as soon as Matt is back. But the reason Matt is not here, you might remember he also said he cheated death in the last episode as well.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's happened again. So he's and apparently worse this time. So he's cheated death in an even more cheating a way than he did before. So we're going to soldier on without him. And this is why this episode might be a little bit more ropey than usual. And given the fact it sometimes sounds ropey anyway, that's not really great. But we're going to do a bit of a J-turn this week, aren't we, Bob?
From The Faraway Tree by Enid Blyton to this fabulous political scientist special. Thanks, Matt. I noticed he took himself.
It's an enchanting story of real war.
Yeah, but from one world, strange worlds to another. So we're going to be talking about If Russia Wins, a Scenario, and that is really important to add that to the title. It's by Carlo Masala. It's narrated by Rupert Bush. Originally published in German in August 2025, but of course now it's a worldwide bestseller. It's 2 hours and 50 minutes, and it's published by WF Howes Ltd.
Yep, and in order to go through this book, because it's going to be a stark contrast from last week, we do our 3-step process. So we talk about the author, we talk about the text of the book and what it's about, and then we talk about the audiobook production and the performance. Did it bring anything extra to the party? And I use the word party very loosely, given the context and the subject of this book, over and above the printed version. And really, well, let's start off by talking about Carlo Masala himself. This is all about the Ukraine war, of course, and what happens if things go wrong there. But yeah, Carlo Masala, Bob.
Now, Carlo Masala is a German political scientist and professor of international politics at the Bundeswehr University in Munich. He's born in Cologne in 1968 to Italian parents. He studied political science and developed expertise in security, policy, strategy and international relations. Now, Masala became widely known through academic work on NATO, European defence and global power competition. Beyond scholarship, he is a prominent public intellectual in Germany, frequently appearing in media, podcasts and debates on foreign policy and military affairs. His books explain complex geopolitical issues to wide audiences, especially after Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And he has shaped public discussion on Europe's strategic future and defence.
So it's fair to say that he's pretty much a brain box on this whole issue. And I think Russia invading Ukraine. I mean, as we record, it was in the news that this war has gone on longer than World War One. I mean, just think about that. It's nuts, isn't it? How long this has gone on for now.
I think what's also important is when it happened, I remember sitting up for 2 days, just in shock that actually it happened. And I think this is what's really important. Even Zelensky didn't think he would invade. Now, America and the UK had intelligence that they would and warned him. And I suppose most of us sat in disbelief because it's not happened in our lifetime.
No.
And I think and one of the really important things is we all assume, of course, after the NATO agreement and the end of World War II, that we were all too organised and grown up to think that this could ever happen again. And then it did. And we think, okay, it didn't happen to us. But actually, it's a bigger story now, isn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't happened to us yet. But then, again, the time is recorded. Time flies so quickly, and we'll come on to this, the value of this book being published, actually, given that when it was published to now, so much has happened. But in the news this week, as we record in the third week of June 2026, you've got shadow Russian fleets going through the English Channel with oil. There was a couple in a yacht sailing off the Isle of Wight going into the path of a Russian battle cruiser or whatever it was. Also the incidents a few years ago. The Skripals in Salisbury, and the culprits saying they just went to visit the cathedral because it has the country's biggest spire. Stuff like that. What a strange world. The thing is, the last 10 years you could put it into, last 15, 20 years, in fact, Crimea and everything.
The book, the book blurb does explain kind of what it's all about, doesn't it?
Thank you for reining us in.
Well,
yes.
No, the reason why I think is before we talk more, people are going to go, well, so the really important thing, if Russia wins, is almost a sentence that we don't even want to say, do we? Admit.
No.
Because that's not what we want. Yeah. But also the word that in the title is a scenario, why it's so important. And Steve, you're going to tell them why.
Yeah, exactly. We're not going to turn this into an episode of The Rest is Politics. You're quite right. Thank you, Bobbie. Yeah, so this is so given that we all know what has happened in Ukraine and where we're up to as we speak today, this is what the book is about. And here is the blurb. So, March 2028, Russian troops capture the small Estonian town of Narva and the island of Himoa in the Baltic Sea. After victory in Ukraine, Putin's long-mooted encroachment into the Baltic states has begun. Europe's slow rearmament and its compromised military and intelligence capabilities is now clear for its enemies to exploit. Does Article 5 of NATO apply? What will the alliance decide? Will they risk nuclear war? If Russia wins, the book, military expert and professor of international relations at the University of Munich, Carlo Masala, explores these questions and underlines what's at stake in Ukraine in the starkest possible terms. For those of us who've only ever known peace, we're accustomed to everything turning out well in the end. But what if it doesn't? Completely speaks to your point there. We have been used to pretty much peace. You and I have lived through the Falklands War, the Gulf War, wars that are hundreds, thousands of miles away. Nothing has really touched our shores since the end of the Second World War.
I agree. Argentinian War, it was just basically a decline in the amount of corned beef. That's what I remember as a kid.
Really?
You can't get corned beef because I don't know. I'm not sure what the strategic problem was with transferring.
The whole thing was over corned beef?
I think it's because, here's the thing, someone's going to correct us. I think it's because corned beef came from Argentina, and I think that was the problem. But that's the things that you remember, because nothing gets to our shores. That's my only memory. It's ridiculous, isn't it?
No, you're right. So, in this particular scenario that he paints, so it's a short book. It's not even 3 hours long, this audio book. And as you listen to it, I don't know what you thought about this, but as you listen to it, it's the creep, isn't it? That's what's been happening over the last sort of 10, 20 years. It's the creep, the kind of the cloud, the gathering storm, as that Winston Churchill drama had it before World War II. It's the gathering storm. And this book basically plays out what could eventually happen in the worst possible terms. And he does explain why, doesn't he? He sort of says we have to do this scenario planning. We have to play this out, don't we?
Well, it's a fire drill. It's a fire drill of fabulous consequences, as in the consequences are so huge we need to think about it. And I think what he's really good at in this book, and I think if you're new to this kind of literature and it seems overwhelming, I get that, but I think it's worth your time and the risk. 106 pages of different scenarios that appear to happen randomly that Masala has set up for you to follow. So it's a bit like a fictional geopolitical drama. So there is a narrative arc to it, which you can kind of go, okay, but it's not real at the end. But it allows you to kind of dive into each scenario and go, hold on a second, do I need to know that? One of the first things I'm talking about is Masala sets up he calls it the soft underbelly of NATO countries. So we're all in NATO, we all protect each other. That's our guarantee that if one of the NATO countries is attacked, that we all go in, isn't it? It's an all for one and one for all situation. So what if Russia, after the Ukraine, they sort out this kind of, we've got a bit of land, there's a ceasefire, we're all getting on perfectly. But what if they go in and they pick on, obviously, this city on the border of Russia in Estonia, which is it's a NATO country. Here's the first question. What are we going to do about it? Tiny country of Estonia. Russia say, we're only going in to defend our Russian-speaking people. Are we going to act? And the biggest thing is, of course we are, aren't we? And this brings it into the present day, because Masala wrote this just before Trump was inaugurated for the second time. And as we've seen over the coming year, that actually the American situation with NATO might not be as clear-cut as it once was. Now, it's not that it's not, but what is it? So the question is, hold on a second, if it's not what it was, what is it? And that's the question that we should have, I think. Living in the UK under NATO, we're a tiny country. For us sitting here, for you and me, is this a warning sign? Also, Russia invading that soft underbelly little tiny country of Estonia is not a thing. It's not definitely going to happen. He's just using it.
Isn't it?
He's just using it as an example.
Yes, he does, and this is the thing, isn't it? It becomes when do you press the button? And I'm reminded, and if anyone has known this, by the way, I think it's on iPlayer and everything. If you want to watch it, but Yes, Prime Minister from the 80s, and they were the first episode of that. And I don't know if you've seen that, Bob.
No.
It's about when Jim Hacker, who's just become Prime Minister, when should he press the button? And he's sitting there with essentially the equivalent of Carlo Masala, and he paints the picture and says, "Okay, then, Russia. There's tension on the East German West German border. Russian police go in to help just to calm the riots. They say, but they stay. When do you press the button? Then no. Okay." Then more stuff happens. So eventually this expert says, okay, when are you going to press the button? Piccadilly? So this is the case. When is it? It's completely over-egging it to press the nuclear button if they invade a small town in Estonia and a small island, a deserted island where they just put the flag on there.
Oh, yeah, and also they what Masala does very cleverly, because we've had a little bit of this already, I think, at least it feels like we have. He also sets up a situation where China sets up a distraction out on an archipelago and does something over there in the South China Sea. And at the same time, there's a huge migrant invasion through the Mediterranean as another distraction, bigger than we've ever seen. So while Europe is maybe dealing with that, and then we're dealing with the South China Sea. So where does our British Navy go if we're needed somewhere? So we are split with so many different diversions. And I think that's also really important. What other diversions they're doing? So I'm not a political analyst, obviously. And I wanted to tell people with this book, it's actually it's a really good way into understanding what I don't know about geopolitics, I think. And the number of times that I've watched the news, I've gone, yeah, I see that, I understand that, but what does it mean? And I think this book could be really helpful. Like I said, this is a fire drill. This is someone saying, look, what if, what if, what if, what if? And if you don't understand those situations, it's a perfect way of going, okay, now I get what he's saying. I don't know all the details. You don't have to. That's what Masala does. He's the political scientist that's been studying all this. So don't worry if you don't know all the bits. I think it's a fabulous way in to understanding some of the news that you see going on, and also especially what's happening in America. Because how do we feel, especially with recent news, about if they're not there? What does that mean for us? I wanted to talk about the book because there's all these scenarios that we talk about that you can go off. It's like a political thriller of, okay, this happens and then this is happening and it's tied all together in the end. What it does really... I
don't know what you thought. I got the feeling of alternative history here. So you've had these amazing series out and books out. Man in the High Castle. What if the Nazis won World War II and they're in America and in Japan? They split. They carve up the states between them. SSGB was one that we've reviewed recently. A couple of years ago by Len Dayton as well. And it feels a little bit like that, but this obviously hasn't happened, and it's a very real situation. But I was kind of getting those kind of vibes that this sort of thing can happen, but it hasn't happened. So it's fiction. It's fiction, but based on intelligence, based on political theory. How these extraordinarily clever people going into lots of details. They're the ones that have to literally go through the whole choose your own adventure scenario, just harking back to last week. If you make this decision, these are the ramifications. This is war gaming, isn't it, really? This is war, that's what they call it.
Masala talked about when he started, he wanted to write a book about this. And one of the things that really spurred him on is all the intelligence came back that by 2029, Russia could have an army big enough to take on a NATO country. And as we're saying, they don't have to take on a huge NATO member. The little kind of distraction of Estonia is enough to test it. So I think that's really important that he's done. Hold on a second. It might not come how we think it's going to come, like First and Second World Wars. It's not going to be like that. He's going to do something cleverer and smarter. And that's what Masala does really well. He looks for tiny little interruptions and sets them up that we should be looking out for. I think also, I was just sitting there thinking about...
I was going to say, you know what? He's right. He's absolutely right. This book was written literally almost a year ago. And talking about NATO being tested, I literally heard that on the radio this week, and quite a few times. When will NATO be tested? And that's exactly what he's describing here. And you're right, invading NATO. The first country you think of when you think of NATO is not Estonia. It's the
there are
US,
other
the UK.
soft underbellies he talks about that could be vulnerable. And also, how do we feel as a NATO team? How does each European member and the states feel about going into protect that tiny country? Sometimes they might actually go, I'm not sure if I really want to go to war for that. Well, you have to, don't you? You're part of NATO. So it does what Russia could do in a very simple way is it's looking at NATO unity. And what Masala does is he's not so much focused on a big Russian invasion. He's focused on the fact that he thinks that Russia wants to test NATO security, and we should be thinking about our NATO unity. Are we united? And that's a real question for us, the everyday people. That's what I'm saying. What's great about the book, it made me go, hold on a second. I don't know if we are united. What's our defence spending? Because you think about our government defence spending, I've never given that a thought. So
no.
So even if you got one thing from this book, regardless of each scenario, I tell you what's also good: get a map out. And if you get a map and you start looking, going, okay, now I realise Estonia also under Finland. Does that then threaten Finland as a NATO member? So does that worry them? And of course, countries that are closer to the border, they may feel this more than we do, because obviously the threat is direct to them. So how do they respond? Like Ukraine, they're going to look to us for help. And do we have the budget and the defence for Europe without the states to protect? Because is it going to be a very different NATO that we're looking at in the future?
Well, this is the thing. Who knows? Depends who's in at the White House still, isn't it? Really? I mean, it's been a very destabilizing. Well, yeah, it's been a very destabilizing thing from a diplomatic point of view. Given Trump's in the White House and given his position on NATO, and looking back for all you can say about Trump, he kept bringing up about NATO, about defense spending being far too low, and them contributing much more than every other country, and that's now changing. Now the countries are spending more because they really see the threat because Ukraine got invaded as well. Would it have happened if they hadn't? Don't know. But then again, he treats. We're recording this in the week of the G7, where he seems to, where you had Giorgia Meloni of Italy saying that it would be nice if Trump treated us the way he treats his enemies.
Exactly.
Because the way he talks to them.
Well, also, I think that's what's great about this book. If you read this book, and even if you read, I don't know, a couple of the scenarios and then the conclusion, or you listen to it, I think what it'll do is it'll sharpen your understanding of where we are politically. Because I think just on the everyday, everyone's just trying to survive. Everyone's just trying to pay their mortgages or work out how to try to pay their rent. So I think this book could be really useful to enable people to go, do you know what? I understand the questions if you don't know the answers. It really allows you to kind of sit back and watch the news and go, I need to be aware of this, and maybe need to think which political party is really understanding the situation that's going on. You can't just hope. And this is what scares me. I think people are just hoping it will be all right.
Everything is still far more globalized, isn't it, at the moment? Because it is having a direct impact on us. You talk about people worrying about paying their rent and paying their energy bills and, filling the car up and all the rest of it. I never thought I would actually think my house hunting. If I want to get a mortgage, I'm really relying on Trump being able to successfully renegotiate the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. Because it affects the inflation, because that affects the interest rate, because that affects the mortgage rate, and that is why house buyers aren't buying while the housing market's really stagnant, and other areas as well. You literally every single day drive past the same petrol station, and that price thing is going round like a fruit machine sometimes, up and up and up, 155, 157, 160, 170. It's ridiculous, and then down again, depending on if he says he's got a deal or not. These geopolitical things have a direct impact on us today. And when money's tight, we really feel that, don't we?
Yeah. And I think it's with this book, because the scenarios when you're listening, what I loved about it is you can listen to a scenario and you can wash over and you go, okay, I vaguely get that. But then you can go back to it in isolation and understand that bit. And then think, oh, okay, now I get that bit. And then you can go forward and then you listen to something else and you're going, hold on a second. They're rounding up people in a city in Africa by force, forcing them onto trucks, taking them out to the desert onto other trucks, and then forcing them onto boats to the Mediterranean. You kind of go, hold on a second, this is not happening, is it? And just the very thing about, is this something? And you go, what Masala is saying is this could be a way of causing a mass migration, fear and problem, which means that Europe is then focused on the Mediterranean entrance. So it's got its guard down. And I think it's time we really need to put our guard up and think differently. And I don't have the answer. I have none of the answers through this book. It's not meant to be that. It's meant for all of us to answer different questions, to go, what if? So, and it's fabulous for that. Also, if you've got decorating to do, this is what I think. When we're talking about listening, what's the book for? How do you listen? Some of them are great for long drives. Some of them are great for a 20-minute commute. I was thinking I would like this book the most if I had a whole house to decorate. And I could put it on and I've got to paint the same wall 3 times, which means I've got to stare at it, right? And this could be a fabulous grown-up distraction, because it is a grown-up distraction. Also, if your friends read it, it's a conversation you can have with each other and go, hold on a second, we haven't thought about this.
Yeah.
I think
it's a bad book to read if you've had a really bad day, at work, or if you've had, if you have some incredibly bad news. Then I wouldn't put my hands straight on this audiobook, metaphorically speaking. First.
No. But what I would do is think about it. Think about strategy. Think about those people in the office that you can't trust, and when they're doing a distraction over there, what are they really doing to undermine you over here? I think
they're taking your Estonia.
They're taking You just your soft.
Get your hands off my small village in Estonia.
Where are your soft underbellies? That's what you got to look for.
And so the diet's been going pretty well. I've only got 6 underbellies left, though. It's been going okay, to be fair.
So
you mentioned about, I know you wrote down in the show notes here, a point about how close this crisis could be to bringing out a major war. And this brings, and I wanted to just sort of talk about the point of this book. So
Okay.
It's a book. It released in August 2025. It paints a really bleak scenario. How useful is it today? I suggest that actually, from everything we've spoken about just now, it's an extraordinarily valuable and really, really engaging book, the content of the book. However, the flip side of that is this could have been a feature in a newspaper article or a feature in Newsweek or something like that, rather than a book. It could have been in a mainstream publication, but it's very much of its time, because time has moved on significantly. You've got Ukraine really fighting back now. With their drones and really causing Russia problems. The sanctions are now starting to really bite with Russia, and the fuel shortages everywhere. It feels like he's backed into a corner at the moment. Of course, these things are transient and can change on a sixpence sometimes. I don't know. It's quite bleak, but did this scenario need some optimism in it as well? If he'd have sort of said, Ukraine might fight back. They've got some great drones. In a more sort of deep and theoretical way.
because the thing is, it's titled "If Russia Wins," but that's really just a starting point, because it's not really about Russia and Ukraine, is it? It's about NATO. It's about security beyond Ukraine, and that's why the book is really clever. And I think, in some ways, the title deceives that and maybe doesn't serve it well. It's a great starting point if Russia wins, but if someone's not interested in what's happening in Ukraine, because if they don't think it affects them, and I think that's really easily done, there's a part of me that stand back from this and go, if we had a different title, would the everyday person pick it up and go, do I need to read this? Because I think there are a certain number of people that just, I don't care, because they don't know why they need to care. And they're bored of it. Obviously, there's people get tired, and in the end, it's almost they think it doesn't matter who wins. Just give up, stop fighting, so we can carry on as normal. And I think Masala's really good. It goes, we are beyond going back to normal, going back to how it was before. That has gone. It left ages ago, and he's really good at bringing that to our attention. There is no going back to where we were before.
It's true. What did you think about Rupert Bush's narration? Did the audiobook bring anything to the party here?
Oh, it's really difficult about casting, because you would think that the narration maybe fits the topic, but I wasn't a fan. And I've listened to, when Ukraine got invaded, I went through a newspaper's top 10 books of Russia and Ukraine, because I knew nothing. One of the reasons I'm talking about this, I knew nothing. So, and I had an argument with my next door neighbour who said, the problem is you don't know anything, Bobbie. And I thought, actually, he's right. So I went through the top 10 books to learn. 5 of those books were fabulous. And one of those books was particularly fabulous because the author who wrote it did the narration, and it was a fabulous listen. You just didn't turn it off. I would cast a different narrator on this, because I think almost like, because it's a political science book, you think it's almost, let's get a very almost a militarized voice to it, and a male voice. I'm always interested that if you put a female voice to that, would it change the idea of where that information belongs? Because do you think?
Can I point you to Rise of the Nazis? This is a BBC TV show. Did you ever see this thing? Rise of the Nazis, narrated, and it was so the narrator was perfectly cast. It was basically talking heads, all these experts, people like Carlo Masala, talking about how they came to power, and it was basically sort of and with dramatization images. But the narrator was female. I think you're right. A more engaging, more There's another one actually. If you've not read any Ben McIntyre, we're a big fan of his on this podcast, by the way. So there will be if you've missed him, don't worry, we'll be doing another one shortly. But he is very good at taking real life events in his historical real life events and turning them into dramas. And he's an extraordinarily amazing narrator of his own work as well, and really sort of turns these people into characters. given that the content of this book, no one is really named. No one is really that. People don't say Keir Starmer. People don't say Emmanuel. I think Macron is mentioned actually. I think they're mentioned occasionally, but they're generally referred to as the president of France, the president of the US. And so it's very difficult to actually characterize these people. And it felt for me like Rupert Bush. He had to really pull it out the bag, I think. He had to sort of be a performer and then some to make it really, really engaging. The first half of the book, when he was just describing events, it's like his intonation went up at the same point after every sentence, and it was just getting a little bit grating. It started to warm up a lot more in the second half when he was actually quoting the statements that these officials and these diplomats were making. Then I kind of got into it a little bit better. I don't know how you felt.
I didn't notice the change. I think I was just, I think maybe the content got me so much. And it might be, I'm going to say this, because I read those 10 books on Russia and Ukraine a few years ago. And again, I really noticed the difference between narration. But I think this time, because that bit of my brain that was, I don't know, watching The Faraway Tree when it should have been doing more grown-up things, that bit is a bit sharper now. So maybe the narration didn't bother me as much, because there was bits of me going, hold on a second, didn't I read about this 10 years ago? Maybe maybe the kind of jeopardy in the narrative. I know they're all made up scenarios. Maybe the jeopardy in that was enough. But I do think it could put people off. I do think there's a way of doing this fabulous content differently, so more people appreciate it. Really, that's what I think.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right, and what Matt and I often discuss on a weekly basis is, was this a performance or was it just a basic narration? And I think, I'm edging towards narration.
Narration, yeah.
Narration.
I mean, it's not.
Sorry,
I mean,
Rupert.
it's not terrible. It's not the worst.
No, you get the information, but yeah. It could be. I think if it's designed for a mainstream audience, as opposed to going to an industry publication or a professional white paper, then it needs to have some real kind of. You need to dramatize it a little bit more, and that's down to Carlo Masala as well as the narrator need to sort of help each other out there. There we go. Then, are we done?
What I'm saying is, get this book.
Yeah.
Just get this book. It'll be really useful for you. You'll watch the news and politics completely differently.
I think you're right. It just brings a different perspective. If you're used to getting your media, and we talk a lot about, and I don't want to sort of poke the bear with this at all here, but you're used to getting the media from your preferred sources, and given that a lot of the media is run by people who want you to think a certain way, it's always good to put your head above the parapet and just have a listen to something else, just to try and eat your vegetables, as Matt would say. Actually, it's a good idea to eat your vegetables. Yeah.
This is broccoli of geopolitics.
However,
I would say it can be an exciting romp in the end. It can be. You go, wow, because there is because
I wasn't expecting the words exciting romp to crop up on this one.
Well, the thing is you could stand back and go, well, this is not real. So you could read it like that and go, wow, that was wow, that's never going to happen.
Yes. Sid James stars as Sydney Fiddler in Carry On Up the Russia. Anyway, I think we recommended this, but I mean, despite the narration, and it's competent, you won't be put off by it too much. It's just a little bit grating guessing parts. Is that you will really get into the content of this book. It will really focus your mind. It will give you some perspective on the world generally, and the way the world is right now, and what we can do to stop it, I guess. It
just might arm you as well if you're in a situation where I always feel like I don't know enough. I don't know enough I'm not informed enough to make a decision. You don't have to be informed enough, but you can be informed enough to ask a question. There you go.
Yeah. That's true. It's true. Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, Matt's going to be really annoyed we haven't put more jokes in this episode, but given this content, it's going to be a tough ask, wasn't it?
Well, if you noticed, he got ill for a second time when a really difficult book came up. This isn't Doctor Who, is it?
Didn't he?
Yeah, no. Notice that? I think he did it on purpose. Get well soon, Matt.
Get well soon. Yes, he loves that sort of banter. He's all right. Let's try and cheer him up. Let's try and cheer up our listeners with a real J turn again. So we're going to go from war to court. in next week's episode, we're gonna bring the sort of the mood up very gently over the course of weeks. It'll be by 5 weeks' time. We'll be onto the Mr. Men books, but we're going to start with legal fiction. With Rob. Have you read any of Rob Rinder's books?
Never. It's his first time.
No.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the human being,
Yeah.
so I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, so this is the latest in Rob Rinder's Adam Green legal thriller series, which he writes inspired by his own experience as a barrister, which we all know he was. Each book focuses on a different case. The series started with the trial, then there was the suspect, most recently the protest from last year, and the book that he released as we record 2 days ago is called The Defence. You see the thing with the titles here. So The Defence by Rob Rinder, it's narrated by Josh Dillon, comes in at 11 hours and 38 minutes out of Penguin Audio. So that is next week's book. So rush to your Audible credits and your Spotify offers and all the rest of it, and have a listen to The Defence, and be really good to hear your thoughts for next week. We've already downloaded. We started I've listened to chapter 1 so far. So yeah, I've started chipping in there. Any luck with your side? No, not yet. Fair enough. Okay. Well, we'll muddle through the case of The Defence next week in next week's episode. But that's with Rob Rinder. In the meantime, Bob, I'm so glad. I'll tell you what, the timing of you joining us is absolutely phenomenal, because otherwise there wouldn't have been an episode. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
And thank you for this fabulous geopolitical.
Depressing kind of.
Well, it's not I would say, let's use the word enlightening. There we go.
Yeah. Yes, using lightning. Excuse me, good dear listener, while my little microphone thing popped up there. Sorry for any sound difficulty. So we are available wherever you get your podcasts, as they always say. We're on Instagram and Blue Sky at Audiobooks Show. We started to pop up. We started to do this on video as well. So you'll see our episodes on YouTube as well now. So our YouTube channel is Audiobook Club 1540. Still don't know why. 20 to 4, don't know. All our episodes are on audiobookclub.net. If you want to talk to any of us about any of the books you're reading, by the way, we're all on Instagram. Whinging Pom for Matt, Real Bobbie Pryor for Instagram, and Steve K Photos for me. Real Bobbie Pryor for Bobbie, of course. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And be really good to hear your thoughts on this one, and also The Defence, the new Rob Rinder, if you are a Rob Rinder fan from his previous books. There you go.
See you next week.
See you next week. Ta-da.
Yeah, lovely.
Being outside is good for us. It's that simple. And trails make it easy for us to walk, bike, and be active outside in our own backyards. On the trail, we see people moving, connecting with their communities, making the places where they live great. For 40 years, Rails to Trails Conservancy has led the way, creating trails across the country, making it safer and easier for everyone to get outside. They want you to get involved. Find your trail and start your journey today at railstotrails.org/iHeart, and follow at Rails to Trails on social.